My name is Jara Sinclair. I'm 35 years old. The night I came home with a layoff notice folded in my bag, my sister didn't ask if I was okay. She asked who was going to pay her car loan. My mom nodded like that was a reasonable first question. My dad walked into my bedroom, pulled a cardboard box from the closet, and started packing my things right there in front of our aunt, in front of the neighbor sitting on our couch with a cup of tea still warm in her hands. He said my sister needed my room more than I did. I stood in that hallway holding 15 years of mortgage payments, insurance premiums, and car notes in my name, and none of it mattered. What they didn't know, what none of them knew, could have changed everything. But by the time they found out, I was already gone. Before I take you back to that night, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit like and subscribe. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from, and what time is it there? Now, let me take you back to a Tuesday evening in March, the night everything fell apart. The fluorescent lights in the conference room at Ashford and Graves buzzed the way they always did, but that Tuesday, they sounded louder. My manager sat across from me with an HR rep I'd never seen before, a folder between them, my name printed on the tab. Company-wide restructuring, he said. We're eliminating 40% of the analytics division. 12 years at that firm, not a single negative review. I'd brought in 3 of their top 10 clients. None of that fit inside the folder. I signed the papers, took the box they offered, the irony of that box wouldn't hit me until later, and walked out by noon. In the parking garage, I sat in my car for 11 minutes. I counted. Then I called Greg Whitmore, my business partner. I got laid off, I said. He didn't miss a beat. Then it's time, Joe. The firm's ready. Austin office is waiting. When do you fly down? I should have said tomorrow. I should have said tonight. Instead, I said, let me go home first. Let me tell my family. Greg went quiet for a second. Joe, you sure about that? I wasn't, but I drove to Carterville anyway. 45 minutes south on I-75, past the Walmart, past the Baptist church, past the Sinclair mailbox at the end of a gravel driveway, the same mailbox my mortgage payments kept as standing. When I pulled in, I counted the cars. My parents', Megan's, Aunt Patty's old Buick, Mrs. Dotson's sedan from next door. 4 cars meant company. Company meant witnesses. I grabbed my bag and walked toward the front porch, still rehearsing how I'd say it. Something steady, something that wouldn't worry them. I didn't get the chance. The screen door hadn't even closed behind me when Megan's voice carried from the living room. So it's true you got fired? She was sitting cross-legged on the recliner, phone in hand, looking at me the way you'd look at a fender bender on the highway, curious, not concerned. Laid off, I said. There's a difference. Whatever. Megan turned to my mother. Mom, I told you. Who's going to pay my car loan now? My mother, Linda Sinclair, was sitting on the couch next to Aunt Patty with a plate of lemon squares between them. Mrs. Dawson from next door occupied the armchair by the window. 3 women, 3 witnesses, and not one of them flinched at what Megan had just said. My mother set her tea down. Joanna, sit. We need to talk. Her tone wasn't worried, it was administrative, like she was chairing a meeting about a budget shortfall, which I suppose she was. I was the budget. How did you already know? I asked. Megan shrugged. Tyler's girlfriend works reception at Ashford. She texted me this morning. So they'd known for hours. They'd sat in this living room, eaten lemon squares, and discussed my layoff before I even cleared my desk. I looked at Aunt Patty. She was staring at her teacup. Mrs. Dawson was doing that thing where she pretends to read something on her phone. Joanna, my mother said again. Sit down. I sat. Megan leaned forward. You could have at least given us a warning. I have a payment due Friday. I almost laughed, almost because the absurdity of it was so complete, so perfectly shaped that it felt rehearsed. But Megan didn't rehearse things. She just said whatever served her first. Let me go back further, because that living room didn't happen overnight. I graduated from the University of Georgia at 22 with a finance degree and a job offer from Ashford and Graves that started 3 weeks after commencement. My grandmother, Ruth Sinclair, 84 now, sharp as a tax audit, drove 2 hours to watch me walk across that stage. She was the one who pinned the tassel on my cap afterward. "You're going to do well, Joanna," she said. "Help your family when you can, but remember, helping and being used are two different animals." I remembered for a while. It started small, $500 a month wired to my parents' account, groceries, the electric bill Megan left unpaid when she dropped out of community college. I was 23, and it felt good. Honestly, it felt like purpose. Then my father, Rye, was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. He was 51, working full-time at the lumberyard. Insurance through his employer covered the basics until the lumberyard cut him to part-time at 57. His coverage vanished. I was 29. I picked up his premium, $780 a month. By 32, he could barely keep up with the mortgage on the house. My mother didn't work. Megan didn't work. Or she did briefly between long stretches of not working. I took over the mortgage. $2,400 a month. I set it on auto pay, like everything else. I did the math once. Over 15 years, I sent home roughly $340,000. I never put it in a spreadsheet. I never printed a receipt. I didn't need credit for it, but I thought, at minimum, they knew. I thought they felt it. They didn't. 2 years before the layoff, my mother called about the car. Megan wanted a new SUV, $38,000. She had no savings, no steady income, and a credit score that wouldn't qualify for a library card. My mother's solution was simple. I'd co-sign the loan. "No," I said, "Megan needs to build her own credit. I'll help her with the down payment, but I'm not co-signing." What followed was 2 weeks of silence. No calls, no texts, nothing from my mother, nothing from my father, and one passive-aggressive Facebook post from Megan that read, "Some people forget where they came from the moment they think they're better than everyone else." Then Aunt Patty called. "Your mother's telling people at church you abandoned your sister." I held the phone and felt something I hadn't expected. Shame. Not because I'd done anything wrong, but because in my family, no and betrayal had always been spelled the same way. I co-signed the loan. The day I put my name on Megan's car note, $650 a month, I did something else. I called Greg Whitmore, a colleague I trusted, and said 4 words: "Let's start our own." He'd been pitching me the idea for a year, a boutique financial advisory firm, small business clients, lean overhead. We filed the paperwork that same week, Sinclair and Whitmore Financial Advisory. My name went first because Greg insisted. "You're the engine, Joe. I'm the GPS." I didn't tell my family, not because I was hiding it, but because nobody asked what I did with my evenings. Nobody asked why I was on calls at 10 p.m. Nobody asked me anything that didn't involve a dollar sign. And so the company grew in the dark. By the time Ashford let me go, Sinclair and Whitmore was 2 years old with 4 employees, a small office on East 6th Street in Austin, and a client list I'd built one handshake at a time. Year 1 revenue, $180,000. Year 2, $340,000. Not a fortune, not a headline, but real money earned from real work. Forecasting, tax strategy, restructuring plans for family restaurants and auto shops, and small construction firms that couldn't afford the big consultancies. I'd kept my day job because it gave me health insurance, and because I'd been trained to play it safe. But the truth was, Sinclair and Whitmore could carry me. The math was clear. Here's the thing that still stings. I had a plan. In 6 months, once the firm hit its next revenue target, I was going to leave Ashford voluntarily, move to Austin full-time, and before I left Georgia, I was going to pay off my parents' mortgage in full. All of it. One lump check, a farewell gift they'd never have to repay. I'd even drafted the letter I'd include. It said, "This is for the house. Take care of each other." That letter sat in a folder on my desktop labeled Someday. I deleted it the night my father packed my things. My mother never once asked what I did after work. My father never once asked if I was happy. Megan never once asked me a question that didn't start with, "Can you?" and end with a number. Nobody knew about the company because nobody looked. But that night, sitting in my parents' living room with lemon squares and judgment and 4 cars in the driveway, none of that mattered yet. The worst part was still coming. My mother folded her hands. She did that when she'd already made a decision and wanted it to look like a discussion. "Joanna, here's the situation. Megan needs a proper room. She's been sleeping on the pullout downstairs for months. You're barely home. You work late. You travel. It makes more sense for Megan to have your room." "You want me to move out?" I said. "I want you to think about your sister." She paused, adjusted her tone the way she always did when she needed the sentence to land softer than it was. "You had a job? Well, you had a job. Now you'll need to find a new place anyway. It's practical." Megan pulled her legs up onto the recliner. "You don't have kids. You don't have a husband. You're flexible." I looked at Aunt Patty. She was pressing her thumb into the arm of the couch, staring at a spot on the carpet. Mrs. Dawson had stopped pretending to check her phone and was just sitting very still, the way people do when they know they're watching something they'll talk about later. "When did you decide this?" I asked my mother. She didn't answer. "Mom, when?" "This morning." This morning, while I was still at my desk at Ashford cleaning out 12 years of work, my mother was rearranging her house to erase me from it. "I went into your room this afternoon," she continued almost casually. "Moved some boxes to the garage just to get things started. I stood up, walked down the hall, opened my bedroom door. Half my bookshelf was empty. The framed photo of my college graduation, the only picture of me on any wall in this house, was gone. The nail hole was still there. They hadn't even waited." I heard footsteps behind me. My father, Ray Sinclair, was 64 years old, 6'1", and had the kind of quiet that people mistook for calm. It wasn't calm. It was avoidance pressed into the shape of a man. He walked past me into the room carrying a flat-pack cardboard box. He popped it open, set it on the bed, and started placing my things inside. Folded shirts, a jewelry box from Grandma Ruth, a coffee mug from my first day at Ashford. "Dad." He didn't look up. "Dad, look at me." His hand stopped, but his eyes stayed on the box. "Your sister needs this house more than you do, Joanna. You'll be fine. You're always fine. You're always fine." 4 words, and in them the entire architecture of how my family saw me. Joanna pays the mortgage. She's fine. Joanna covers the insurance. She's fine. Joanna co-signs the loan. She's fine. Joanna gets laid off and evicted on the same day. She'll be fine. She's always fine. I looked into the box. Sitting on top of my folded clothes was the graduation photo, frame and all. My mother must have taken it down this morning, while she knew, while I didn't, while I was still employed and still paying and still fine. From the hallway, I heard Megan open a browser tab on her phone. She was already shopping for curtains. I picked up the box, then the second one already packed by the door. I carried them to my car, one in each arm, past the living room where my mother sat with her hands still folded, past Aunt Patty, who stood halfway up from the couch like she wanted to say something, but sat back down when my mother looked at her. Nobody followed me outside. The driveway gravel crunched under my tires the way it always did. I'd heard that sound 1,000 times. Coming home from school, from college, from 12-hour days at a desk that earned me nothing in this house except the right to keep paying for it. I drove 11 miles before I pulled into the parking lot of a Chevron station off Highway 41. Engine running, hands on the wheel. I sat there for 10 minutes. It wasn't the layoff. Losing a job stings, but I've got a resume and a Rolodex and a company with my name on the door. That part I could fix by morning. It was the phono, that bare nail in the wall where my graduation picture used to hang. My mother took it down before I even knew I'd been let go. That means she looked at my face in that frame, decided I was leaving, and pulled the nail. 15 years, $340,000, and they removed me from the walls in an afternoon. I called Greg. "The Austin office," I said. "Is there room for me? I've had a desk with your name on it for 6 months. I was just waiting. I'm driving to a hotel tonight. I'll book a flight in the morning. I'll pick you up from the airport." "Joe, you okay?" I told him I was fine because that's what I do. After I hung up, I cried. Not loud, not dramatic, just sitting in a gas station parking lot in rural Georgia with 2 cardboard boxes in the back seat and no home behind me. I cried because I realized that in 15 years of sending money, not one person in that house thought I was worth keeping. Less than an hour after I drove away, Megan hung new curtains in my room. I found out later from Aunt Patty. Austin in March smelled like cedar and fresh rain and something I couldn't name for the first 3 days. On the 4th day, I figured it out. It was absence. The absence of obligation. Greg picked me up from the airport on a Wednesday morning. By Thursday, I had a key to the office on East 6th, a converted warehouse unit with exposed brick, 4 desks, and a whiteboard covered in Greg's handwriting. Our team, Lisa, Marcus, Devin, and Priya, 4 people I'd hired over late-night Zoom calls while sitting in a bedroom my family was already planning to give away. "Welcome to headquarters," Greg said. He taped a paper sign above one desk. "Jason Clare, co-founder." I found a 1-bedroom apartment 3 blocks from the office, 600 square feet, white walls, 1 window facing an oak tree. I signed the lease the same day and slept on an air mattress that night with the window open. The next morning, I sat at my desk and did something I hadn't done in 15 years. I opened my bank account and looked at the balance without subtracting anyone else's expenses from it. The auto-pay transfers were still running. Mortgage, $2,400. Dad's insurance, $780. Megan's car, $650. Every month, $3,830 left my account and landed in a life that had just told me to leave. Greg leaned against the doorframe. "You're still paying them, aren't you?" I didn't answer.
"Joe, they packed your boxes." "I know. Then why?" I minimized the screen because saying it out loud that I was still hoping someone would call and say they were sorry felt worse than just paying. Nobody called. 14 days. I counted them, the way you count stitches after a surgery. Each one pulling, each one holding something closed that wanted to open. No call from my mother, no text from my father, no voicemail from Megan asking where I was, if I'd eaten, if I had a roof over my head. On day 10, I made the mistake of opening the family group chat. Megan had posted a photo. My old room, repainted dusty rose, new curtains, a vanity table with a ring light. The caption, "Finally got my own space." My mother commented, "Looks beautiful, sweetheart." I scrolled back through the chat. 14 days of messages about Megan's room makeover, a recipe Linda found for slow cooker chili, and a photo of my father's new tomato plants. 14 days of a family continuing as if a limb hadn't been amputated. I put the phone face down on my desk. That night, I pulled up my banking app. The auto-pay screen glowed. 3 line items, 3 lifelines, running from my account to a house that had scraped my name off its walls. Greg had gone home. The office was dark except for my laptop.
I sat there with the cursor hovering over cancel recurring payment. I didn't click. Not yet. I told myself I was being strategic, that cutting the money without warning would be reckless, that I needed a plan, that a financial professional doesn't make impulsive decisions. But that was a lie. I didn't cancel because some stupid, stubborn part of me was still refreshing my phone at midnight, waiting for a notification that said, Mom or Dad, and started with, "We're sorry." The notification never came. The auto-pay kept running, for now.